Hello, campers. Welcome to Discover RPG, your lunchtime break where we celebrate all the letters in the acronym RPG. It's been a while. Um, it has been quite a while since I was under this banner. So yeah, we're gonna have some fun today. I'm very excited. And I hope you all are having a very good day. I have been racking my brain lately trying to figure out what I wanted to do with this space. A few of you who've been here before probably know that we've been fiddling a little bit with the format. We've been the Power Hour for a while, and I still enjoy the Power Hour as a concept. Um, just kind of fooling around and doing all sorts of stuff. But I missed Discover RPG. I missed talking about role-playing games, and specifically I missed discovering new ones. And so I decided that, with Logan's permission, of course, that I was going to resurrect the brand and play around a little bit. So one of the things I want to do is talk about indie RPGs and learn them along with you, kind of a study group, if you. So today I am going to be talking about a game that I've been so delighted by the concept of for a while now. Camp Flying Moose for Girls of All Kinds. If you like Lumberjanes, the comic book created by Noel Stevenson, or honestly, I would imagine Gravity Falls is also a good touchstone for this game. I think you will enjoy it, and especially if you enjoy our forays into Monster of the Week. This is also a game that is powered by the apocalypse, so it is a system that shouldn't be that too difficult of a jump to get into if you've been watching us talking about Monster of the Week before. But got so excited, forgot to talk about some things. So, I'm Angela, if you haven't seen me in a while, or if you don't know me at all. I'm a creator and a director here at Nerdsmith. We're a community of folks who make podcasts and live streams and all sorts of nerdy content. A lot of it surrounding tabletop role-playing games like D&D and Vampire the Masquerade. You can find a bunch of our info underneath this stream and at nerdsmith.org. But one important thing that we are doing over, I'll be honest, for the foreseeable future, we will be supporting Black Lives Matter movements. So if you would like to help, or if you would like to find out how to participate, we've been putting links and stuff above, and you can find that also below the stream under fundraiser. We're raising money for the Bail Project, which is a nonprofit organization that is trying to dismantle the money bail system in the US, which unfairly punishes those who cannot pay their way out of police custody. So we are supporting Tanya DePass and other RPG leaders in the community in raising funds for that project. We are putting our efforts into that fundraiser as well. So anything that you donate via our tiltify.com fundraiser account will go right into the pot for that organization. And to be honest, I haven't checked in a little bit how much they are at right now. Check. The Justice, Peace, Freedom campaign. They are currently at $323,000 and some change. They are shooting for $350,000. So if you want to help donate, please feel free to take a look. We have had some incredibly generous folks from our creators, us directors, and from our audience helping us over the last several days. We've been putting out some content that we hope is offering a little bit of a reprieve from things that are going on, a little bit of an escape for you, a little bit of joy and games, but at the same time, putting our efforts very determining. I don't have words today. Being very determined to put our efforts towards a cause we believe in. So please take a look at our fundraising here above, and then there's links below and ways that you can participate donate and be a part of the current but long running human rights efforts. So, let's talk a little bit about games because I'm excited. So, a little while ago, little context. A little while ago, if someone actually knows how to pronounce this, please let me know. Itch.io or Itch.io, I don't know which one is preferred. But I've been spending a lot of time on itch.io trying to expand my horizons to discover games that are not just D&D, not just Pathfinder, not just the monoliths in the industry. And as great as those games are in terms of bringing mass interest, oh, it's okay. I haven't even started talking about the game yet, Pygmy. You're fine. At some point, I need to have soup, because if you haven't been here before, Pygmy is our moderator for Shenanigoons, which is our Spelljammer game, which would have been last night, but we played Jackbox games with the cast. But Pygmy's our moderator, and they have soup for lunch when we have our lunchtime Discover RPG. Anyway, so back to story time. I have been using itch.io. You were making sandals? Interesting. I need to know more about this. Itch.io is a great resource for indie games, whether that's video games or tabletop role-playing games. And so I have been keeping my ear to the ground when I find new stuff. There's lots of amazing one-page RPGs. They are currently running a bundle for racial justice and equality. If you check out itch.io, I probably should page, to be honest. But if you go itch... Hey, Chad. Welcome. Anyway, sort of on topic. But anyway, so itch.io has a bundle going on right now with hundreds and hundreds of indie video games and indie TTRPGs, with funds going directly to Black Lives Matter efforts. I will have the info in a moment because I have totally already bought this bundle. So I'm excited to share it with you. But anyway, I sifted through this thing, and there are... I think I now have 144 discrete, independently produced TTRPGs right now. I just linked it in chat. You can find the the bundle there, and it does not cost much money. It is $5 for the whole bundle. I paid $10 because I wanted to put more in. And please take a look. This was not in there at the time, but if for several of the games that I want to talk about this next few weeks are in here. But this game in particular, I got in a different bundle, I believe, and I've been super excited ever since. And I did just tell, so it's by Alicia Furness, and I did just tell Alicia today that I'm a complete dummy, and I checked out her author bio on itch and discovered that she also wrote a couple of other games that I'm super duper excited to play. And I will talk about those maybe later. I will link to Alicia's content as well when I have a brain cell to devote to doing that. Or I might be able to give you permission, Alicia, if you would like to link. But I don't know how to do that. I haven't moderated my own stream before, so but I will link to your stuff. Anyway, so let's actually focus. Well, I have ADHD. So anyway, let's talk about this game. I will have my brain on great moment. There we go. Anyway, that's the link to Alicia's page. This is one of the games that she designed called Camp Flying Moose for Girls of All Kinds. It is a summer camp inspired game that is run on the Powered by the Apocalypse system, which we've talked about at length before. I've always been very impressed with how simple or how easy to pick up the rules are, but also how deep a character and how the depth of character interaction and relationships that you can build in a very short amount of time with the session building in this game system. And so I was very excited to find that there was a sort of summer camp themed thing. It, like I said, it is overtly inspired by Lumberjanes, which is gonna Netflix show soon, and I'm super excited. R.I.P. Shira. Anyway, the I also got heavy vibes of Gravity Falls. So I got like Pacific Northwest cryptid thing. I got those sort of vibes from it, and also Camp Camp, which is created by Rooster Teeth. So it's got that, you know, silly summer camp doing absurd. Oh, also Psychonauts. Psychonauts is a video game, is another really good cultural touchstone for this. I have a brain that very much fixates on television and movies, and lots of that's where most of my brain cells go to. So one of the things I really love about the game system called Fiasco is every time you get one of their new game modules, it is customary to provide TV, film, and literature touchstones for you to reference if you want to talk about the genre. So that's usually how I pitch things to people. So Lumberjanes, Gravity Falls, Addams Family Values, the camp scenes, maybe? But so there's lots of different summer camp, teenage, coming of age stories that would be a very good reference point to inspire you and get the juices flowing for a game in this. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about, I won't go exactly in the order of the book because I think it might make sense, since we've talked about it before, to go over a little bit what Powered by the Apocalypse is based off of, and then we can talk a bit about the actual game world building and things in the game. But so the idea of Powered by the Apocalypse is that you are playing a group of characters that get a series of moves. You're choosing actions that you can do, and based on the rolls of a couple of d6s, you are deciding whether or not you have a success, which is a certain ranking of difficulty, a moderate success, or a failure. And so there's varying degrees. And what I really love about that is it really mechanically enforces the idea of yes, but, which is a much more satisfying, potentially, is much more satisfying for DMs or GMs when confronted with something from their players. It's like, yeah, you can do that, but it's complicated, or but this other thing happens. Forward momentum and yes-anding as much as possible, but then also not just hand-holding the party so that they get everything they ask for exactly how they want it. They do have to deal with complications and so I do really dig the a more complicated degree of success system that Powered by the Apocalypse works off of. As a game master, you are less actively opposing and more reacting to what they do, typically in a Powered by the Apocalypse game. In a combat or a encounter situation, you are normally expected to react to the actions of your players rather than having a game plan of what the bad guy exactly is actively trying to do. Putting a little bit more agency into your players and being a bit more improvisational. Of course, that's just as written. It implies a bit more improvisation. And so there are general moves that you can do. So let's talk a little bit about the characters. You are playing, I guess we should backtrack. Well, next time I'll make an outline of how I want to talk about. So, camp flying moves for girls of all kinds. The idea of it being all-inclusive for any child or young person that identifies as a girl. It is actively encouraging, as it says here, actively encouraging girls of color, trans girls, and queer girls to come to the camp. And so you are actually having, we hadn't really talked about it, Powered by the Apocalypse typically has playbooks, and one of the things that I think is really powerful about character generation in Powered by the Apocalypse is the idea of playing with archetype. It is incredibly quick to pick up the style of character that you're playing. But what is a little more simple about Camp Flying Moose is that there are not playbooks. You are building stats and you get to pick special moves. It even further simplifies the character creation process. It kind of makes sense from even a narrative standpoint. You're dealing with teenagers or children, and classes don't necessarily make sense, or a set archetype might not make sense because kids are just discovering themselves. So I actually think even from a narrative standpoint, it works really well to not have archetypal playbooks. Also, shout out to Alicia, that also made writing this probably a little easier, so power to you. And that allows for your characters to not necessarily fit into an archetype. Both the idea of embracing girls of all kinds and the style of character creation really lends itself to that idea of agency and individuality, and I very much like how mechanics inform theme in the way that this is designed. So, you are tasked with describing your character, name, style, other physical descriptions, and there are some basic questions that you're asked. How many years have you been coming to camp? What is an item that you carry with you at all times? Who is your best friend at camp? And what are you an expert at camp? The best friend question plays very much into a lot of the themes of this game, focusing on the development, the testing, and the strength of friendship between children and between girls. So the idea of building predetermined character relationships, very much par for the course with Powered by the Apocalypse. Specifically, I'm thinking Monster of the Week. I haven't delved enough into some of the other systems to know how emphatic it enforces or encourages you to build character relationships like that. So yeah, you're basically creating your group, your party. You're all in the same cabin. You talk about who your camp counselor is and what she is like, and what does your camp counselor like to do with you guys at camp. You're again, with the removal of playbooks, you are creating. Hi, Rhiannon. With the removal of playbooks, you are dealing with your stats and a preset array for the stats. It makes it way simpler. Again, pick up on this game as a one-shot would be, I think, very easy to do. So your stats are as follows. Speed, which is pretty self-explanatory, how fast and nimble you are. Your smarts is your knowledge. Your strength is endurance and how physically strong you are. Friendship, I love the idea of friendship as an ability. How you relate to people or animals. Creatures, I guess. Beasts. Crafting is how skilled you are at making things. I do absolutely love the idea of carpentry and friendship bracelets being under the same ability score. So, speed, smart, strength, friendship, and crafting are your abilities for your girl, and you are able to assign a set array of values 2, 1, 0, 0, and -1. So that's how you assign those. All right. So let's talk a little bit about the moves. When you create a character in this system, you pick 2 special moves, and you have access to all the general moves, and that's very, again, very par for the course with a Powered by the Apocalypse. There's usually a set of general moves that everybody can do, and then you have specialized abilities, the things that make your character unique. So, your camper can do the following. You can make friends. When you befriend a creature, you roll plus your friendship score. And again, what I really, really love is you've got a sliding scale of success, and it gives you a bit of a guideline for how to adjudicate how those work when you roll. So, if you roll your 2d6 plus your friendship, if you get a 10 or higher, you learn a fundamental truth about this creature, and you can ask 2 questions from the list of questions and take +1 forward. Now, a forward, we didn't really go over this. In Powered by the Apocalypse, a forward is a bonus point that you can add to a future roll. So you get, basically, you're getting an advantage, not to mistake with D&D advantage, you're getting a benefit for future actions because you have learned something fundamental about the creature that you're making friends with. On a 7 to 9 on your roll, you make a tenuous connection with the creature, and you can ask 1 question from the list. You can ask a second, but you annoy the creature and take a -1 forward. So the next thing you attempt to do, you get a negative. Gamer Granny, I'm with you. And I will talk about that after we talk about the show. I will talk about perhaps ways to play this game. On a miss, so if you get a 6 or lower, the creature is bothered by you. You can ask 1 question, but the counselor, or GM, which I love, does not have to answer honestly. So the questions you get options for. What is the name of the creature? What does this creature desire? How can we help this creature? And what is the mood of this creature? So that is your make friends move. You get also an investigate move, which is probably pretty self-explanatory. And similarly with the make friends roll, you can, you get to ask questions depending on the success of your investigate. The questions you can ask are, what is this mysterious thing called? Is this mysterious thing in immediate danger? How can we best protect this mysterious thing? And does anything else know about the existence or location of this mysterious? I really like the idea. You are identifying something mysterious with your smarts skill, and if you fail the roll, the mysterious thing morphs into something else entirely. You gotta be on your toes as a counselor in this game, as a storyteller. Alright, so other moves that you have. The power of friendship. You can help a girl with the move they are making. This allows you to grant bonuses to your friends. So this is, you can add 1 to their roll. A slightly less successful, you can add 1 to their roll, but you do something embarrassing and you get a -1 on your next action. And on a miss, you make the situation worse. Adrenaline. When you make this move, you demonstrate extraordinary strength. So you roll your strength. And again, you get to do what you wanted, or you get a hard decision or a sacrifice you have to make, or you take a -1 to your next attempt. So that's pretty much what you can expect from a lot of these actions. Quick as a bunny, you can act quickly. Create the perfect tool is your crafting skill. Again, you succeed, but, or you make things worse. So those are your basic moves. You make friends, investigate a mystery, you help a friend with the power of friendship, you are strong with adrenaline, you are quick as a bunny, or you create the perfect tool. Those are your moves that you can make during the game. Special moves. Each girl gets to choose 2 special moves, and it gets you special abilities, new skills, or grants you advantages to your general moves. So basically, how do you want to customize your girl, your camper, and what do you want her to be able to do? So, things like climbing trees and leaping from branches to branches like a squirrel. You can be stealthy. You can remember lore, and no specific questions. I've got that badge. When you need to build something related to survival, you can roll with smarts instead of crafting. So you want someone who has studied the handbook very diligently, you can do that. Superhero, just bonuses to your strength. I ain't afraid of no ghost. You are not scared of mysterious creatures. If you fail to make friends when interacting with a mysterious creature, you can take a partial success instead. Max friendship, adding 2 instead of 1 to a friend's attempt when you're helping them. Everybody's friend, you're very charming. You get a +1 to all your make friend rolls. Arts and crafts boss, you get a +1 when crafting the perfect item. And repair kit is you can make repairs to fabric and other small items that might get damaged during your trip. Or your special abilities. So, the GM, the game master, the storyteller, the dungeon master, whatever you want to call it, is known as the counselor, which I love. You help teach the players, so for this purposes, I will be your counselor today. Teaching rules to the other player and facilitating play at the table, helping to tell the story. Mostly, I like the idea of specifically calling it facilitating play rather than guiding the party or telling a story, because it is hyper collaborative. This is about everybody working together. So, you will be creating the places and you'll be running the places and creatures and people of this world and reacting to the girls' actions as those NPCs. So, your goals as the camp counselor, and also I very much appreciate this guidance as a storyteller. This would be very helpful for someone who is perhaps new at telling stories as a game master. So, focusing on 3 main goals. 1, bring the world to life. 2, fill the camp with wonder and mystery. And 3, play to see what happens. So encouraging the tone of the game being one of discovery and wonder and fun, and being on your toes and being adaptable and willing to be highly improvisational. Those are incredibly important skills as GM. So the girls should, it says, remember that this is a game of self-discovery, and the girls should lead the action of their own lives. Make sure that the girls, the campers that you are playing, or that your party is playing, feel and actually have agency to direct their goals of self-discovery, how they're growing as children and into adults, how they are growing as friends and as good human beings. Essentially? I guess they don't have to. Good people. Let's just say good people. So what do you do to actually reinforce those goals of bringing the world to life, filling it with wonder and mystery, and then playing to see what happens? What should you actually be doing as a storyteller? Some of the principles that are suggested are imbue the world with the supernatural. Now that is, again, playing very highly with, to be honest, I haven't read a ton of Lumberjanes. Please let me know. I assume that there's quite a bit of supernatural elements to it, but it makes me think of, again, Gravity Falls, the idea of embracing cryptids, which I get Heavenly and our show on the network, Monster Crush, involved in this. Anyway, embracing cryptid culture. Cryptid culture. I guess you could embrace cryptid culture. But looking up cool monsters, making cool monsters, coming up with magic that would exist in the world. Psychonauts is another really good one. The idea of a summer or a camp, a training camp for child psychics, and the kinds of stuff that they do there is really interesting. And all right, so imbuing the world with the supernatural. Just go buck wild. Have a good time with creating fun, magical elements to the game. In all honesty, I think that this game fits very well if you want to go Yes, Chad, meat circus. If you want to go high fantasy with this, I think it's completely legitimate. If you want to go more modern, completely legitimate. I think it would be really fun to pick an aesthetic of almost like any handful of fantastical settings. I think it would be very neat to explore different subgenres within this for your game. Uh, Absolutely my pleasure, Alicia. I tried purposefully not to like memorize this. So that I was getting sort of fresh reactions as I talked about it. If I had had more brain space over the last week, I would have had far more of a presentation. But right now I'm just exploring. That's kind of how my brain works. All right, so let's continue with some of the principles to guide you as a storyteller. Address yourself to the girls and not the players. That is really nice in order to keep the players in roleplay mode, keep them in the story. That might cover addressing them as characters rather than addressing them with their real name, so that they are answering questions and reacting to things as the character, in the headspace of the character, rather than, okay, Billy, what does Sasha do in this situation? Billy goes, okay, what is my character doing? As opposed to, Sasha, what do you do during this? And the player thinks, oh, right, I'm Sasha, so I think this, I think that. Getting your players to think in first person as the character can really enhance their role play. I know not everybody is like method when they play characters, and that's completely okay. This is just a tool to help encourage getting into that headspace while role playing. It can be very, very rewarding. Not required, but very, very encouraged, in my opinion. All right, ask questions and build on those answers. That is DMing 101, the idea of sifting through your players' brains and tugging out what they give you. They can often come up with way better stuff than even you thought about, because think about it. You got 4 people at your table plus yourself. You're one brain. You have one idea of where direction things are going to go, but you have 4 other brains with 4 other perspectives and 4 other points of view that can bring other aspects to your story and concoct ideas that you hadn't even conceived of. You can really embrace the collaborative nature of the story by asking your players, or asking the characters, questions about the world, about what they want to do, what they're thinking, and their answers can very much inform the direction of that session or your campaign or your one-shot, however you're going to play this. Use the supernatural as allegory. That is built into the foundations of a lot of genre fiction, if not all genre fiction, sci-fi and fantasy. Supernatural is not, don't tell them, it's not real in the way that more sort of hard reality fiction is. And sometimes it can be very powerful and very affecting to use magic and use creatures of the supernatural in order to teach people, or in order to help someone empathize with an experience that they don't have. The idea of some people just have a mental block, or there is some context or some experience they have that can block an empathy reaction to a real life scenario. And I am a firm believer that if you're able to kind of bypass that block through the art of fiction and through magic and fantasy, and then all of a sudden you've made an impact on their worldview and the way that they see other people, and they realize that connection between the story you're telling that is, ostensibly completely removed from an experience or a situation that they have trouble empathizing with, and then all of a sudden they've experienced it. There's research, and I really need to get more references for this research, but there is research that's been done talking about the experience of role-playing games and what is going on in your brain when you're role-playing, and the idea of the parts of your brain that retain what you do when you're playing role-playing games is the same spot in your brain that retains actual long-term memory. And so when you are role-playing, you talk to people who've role-played, you will find a lot of the time when they're recounting stories of things that they've experienced and what they've pretended to experience, they will regurgitate that story as if they lived it. They don't go, okay, so we were all sitting at the table and this person lifted up their pencil and wrote this down, and then they rolled a dice and did that. You're not always going to get that story. You're going to get, we were in this cavern and this goblin king came forward and he really needed help dating this other goblin that he had a crush on, and so we all did this thing. So most of the time you're going to find people telling you first-person accounts of the way that they're experiencing games, and I really think that using the lore and world building of your game in order to help tell stories that have a lasting impact on how people see the real world is very powerful. So I highly approve of the idea of using supernatural as allegory. You want to talk about heartbreak. You can use a yes, Goblin King romance. I just came up with that, so that'll probably be something. You want to talk about heartbreak in relationships, and you can use some sort of arcane or magical bond between two creatures to talk about relationships and the nature of relationships and connection to people, and you use this more literal magic metaphor to talk about dating or breakups or any sort of thing about relationships, and building stories like that can be really powerful. So I highly approve, and that was a really long walk to get to I like that. Welcome to Discover RPG, where I wax poetic or not poetic about everything. This one I have never had a problem with, and my longtime DM and friend Logan has never had a problem with. Make the girls care about the creatures. It is one of my favorite things, and it is so very common in the games you will find played here on Nerdsmith, where a monster will show up, and Logan, how dare he, will make us give so many fucks about this person. And do a beautiful job of making the monster relatable or sympathetic, and within moments of meeting a monster that is even remotely sapient or sentient, we will all defend it with our lives. So off the top of my head at the moment in Shenanigans, we have Peanut, who's a baby giant space hamster. We all have one of them, by the way. Really should watch Shenanigans. We also, in Shenanigans, have Jeremy, the amiable narwhal, the amiable space narwhal. Thank you, Matthew, for that donation, NPC. And those two characters are absolutely adorable, and we love them. But they are, you know... oh, Peanut is definitely... they're both members of our crew now. I made Jeremy a narwhal horn cozy for his horn. Anyway, making the girls care about the creatures, treating them less often as monsters and obstacles to be fought or killed, and treating them as living, breathing, feeling creatures who have other experiences and needs, and leading your campers to want to care and help. That's very My Little Pony as a theme. Next section, or next principle: use threats, but never harm the girls. that is very important in terms of setting the tone of the game. There are going to be games that have a sliding scale of peril. D&D as just, like I said, a monolith. You can play D&D in a million ways. You can play it like a meat grinder, or you can play it as a friendship simulator, and I prefer the second. But there's obviously a gigantic gradient between those two. But this game in particular is saying you can have peril, you can provide danger or fear in that story, but the story is not about putting physical harm on the girls. It is about creating adventures that... Very good. Creating adventures that feel like adventures, but are not necessarily, at the end of the day, going to cause the girls to fear for their lives. It is Saturday morning cartoon level of peril. That is the tone, and I like that, and there's still so much you can do with that as the tone. You are not, for lack of... okay, so Alicia in chat, I found that harm against children was a common line for people, so I wanted to make sure the space was safe. Thank you for saying lines. I had forgotten to mention that at the beginning, and I'll go back after this section. Okay, I'll talk about it real quick now. As a counselor, what I very much appreciate, and I'm gonna just do a really quick scroll up because you brought that up. I appreciate it. What's really, really nice, more power to you, Camp Flying Moose actually specifically textually mentions safety tools. I have been a proponent and a cheerleader for safety tools from the moment I started learning more about them explicitly. But they do, it does give a couple of examples that really would enhance the safety and safe escapism of this game. You don't want people to feel traumatized or, sort of emotional or mental health whiplash because of your game. You want to create a safe space and a safe table where your players feel confident to explore the space, but under controlled conditions. This is a principle that I am so supportive of because I have played in a number of, and this is not a negative, I have played in a number of games with very challenging emotional and moral choices. And I think that those stories were stronger for understanding what the line was for a player. That a lot of people, myself included, process a lot through roleplay. It's processing difficult emotions and difficult life experiences that would not be safe or would not be healthy to experience directly, but in a role-playing space, in a tabletop space, it is a safe way to process those feelings. It is a physically safe place for you to work through a lot. D&D is therapy, man. Roleplay is therapy. The reason therapists do it. So having a structure of safety, having open communication, number one, number two, number three rule of roleplay on tabletop is communicate with each other. And as a counselor, as a storyteller, your job is to communicate with your players the story, communicate what they can expect, communicate discomfort, communicate solutions, and you're caring to them as the ostensible leader of your group, or at least the guide of your group. I do appreciate a story guide as kind of the terminology for that. So safety tools. These are examples. You can use all, you can use some. You don't have to. There's others that aren't mentioned, but these are really, really good starting points. And I really would recommend checking out, if you haven't, I'm sure several of you have heard me talk about this, but Monty Cook Games came out with an RPG consent form, of which they, or at least some independent people, myself included, have worked on fillable versions, some PDFs that work on, and I will bring that up, Pygmy, that work on the principle of lines and veils, or stoplight. It's sort of blending the two. But so, lines and veils, standard in all of our games, highly encouraged, if not regular practice in all of our Nerdsmith server games. The idea of lines are hard stops. They do not appear in a game. You do not talk about them. They do not happen in your world as far as the viewpoint of the game is concerned. Just, it's never there. There's a blinder, and you never deal with that or the consequences of whatever that line is. So in this case, harm to children is a line. Peril is fine. Fear is okay, done responsibly. But you're never in fear for physical danger for the children in the story. A veil is something that might occur during your game, but will never be directly talked about or role played, and it can be alluded to. The consequences of that thing could be shown in game, but the act itself, or the event itself, or theme is not directly addressed in the game. It is not something you would be role playing. So that is, you can handle it, but you don't want to act it out. And everyone's lines and veils are different, and it is very important and it's challenging sometimes to navigate that, but the most important thing is to communicate with each other. I find that Monty Cook's RPG consent form, or RPG consent checklist, it's exhaustive. It's kind of meant to be. You, especially with, there's value to both doing it in a campaign and a one-shot. Taking the temperature of your party in terms of thematic elements, for a campaign, vital. Absolutely vital. It's long-term. You're going to be doing long-form storytelling. Ideally, your players are going to be giving you hooks to talk about in their backstories or in what they want to explore as a character. So you need to be able to be confident as a storyteller that you're not putting anyone in mental or emotional danger. So those checklists are incredibly important. As a one-shot, I find it incredibly important because you only get one shot to play with these people in this scenario, in this game. And you want to put your best foot forward. And as a one-shot, you need to be able to design an impactful and dynamic story. And if somebody gives you a line for that, you just avoid it. You're only playing in the one session. There is no harm. You are absolutely capable and empowered, and it is possible for you to write a one-shot, removing any one element from it if you are challenged to do so. And part of your job as a one-shot storyteller is to adapt, because don't feel like there is anything sacred in your game that you can't do without for one session. You know, it's a challenge. It's a storytelling challenge. If you can't empathize with it, at least take it as a storytelling challenge. If someone has a line or veil that you might have trouble empathizing with, or just respect it and understand that when you invite people to your table, you're going to respect those things. And then the other example of a safety feature is a stoplight card. You have 3 cards. We've done this in chat as well, so when we're playing electronically, we use 3 text-based messages. So it's very intuitive. Red means stop, yellow means proceed with caution, and green means everything's okay. So if someone's reacting strongly in roleplay, someone's crying, someone's yelling, you have that sort of thing, you can tap the green card to check on someone, and then they can respond in the red or the yellow or the green to non-verbally and quickly tell you whether this is an okay roleplay moment or if perhaps the bleed is not healthy for them, the emotional bleed that's happening. We also utilize, in a lot of my games, we utilize movie language or script language, however you want to call it. that's again just how my brain works. So people find it often very helpful to think, can we fast forward or can we fade to black? This mentions fading to black. Um, can we montage this? Can we like the idea of communicating or yes, communicating your needs in the narrative or your need to change the narrative a little bit for your comfort, in the sense of like you're all looking at a camera, you're looking at something being filmed, so you can discuss, okay, we're gonna pan to the fireplace. I've done that before. Um, but also the idea of um, retconning something back. Can we rewind and change this really quick? I've had shout out to one of my fellow players, Tessa. During last season of Shenanigans, she had a character who's bard use an ability that she had as a bard to speak out to psychically damage a parent of her character. And she realized upon doing that she had said something in this effort to emotionally or psychically damage the bad guy, uh, that felt very emotionally manipulative and potentially emotionally abusive to an onlooker of the scene. So she requested very politely that we rewind after her turn. She got a chance to speak up, and she was given the opportunity by the DM to say, I didn't like what this was. I want to apologize to the viewers. This was live. And I want to retcon and change what she said because that's not okay. And you have the ability and you should be empowered to do that if you feel like you made a mistake. And she owned up to it immediately, and she asked to please adjust the language of what she said so that it was not so upsetting to her and potentially to other people what her bard had done to injure her parent, her very bad guy parental character. So safety tools, very important. Sorry, that no, not sorry. It's important to talk about these things. Tangent done. Um, so I'm gonna go a little bit quick into the camp counselor stuff. Um, so the players make moves, as we talked about. The counselor reacts to the moves. Your reactions are as follows. The things you can do, your main tools when playing: separate the girls, make them investigate, surprise them, tell them the possible consequences, and ask if they want to continue, which I will talk about. Turn their move back on them. So, okay, yeah, that happens, but because that happens, offer an opportunity at a cost, put someone in trouble, make someone doubt them, or after every move, ask what they do next. So we'll talk about these. So, separate them. Now, as this addresses, that is not a common thing to encourage in a game. But in separating them, this is a very common trope in like children's adventures. The Goonies is another good example of sort of like the adventures that you would see. Sending the girls in different directions, or putting a physical barrier between them, or revealing a fundamental truth that creates tension in their friendship. So challenging them because their friendship and bond is one of the major elements of this game. Challenging that friendship or challenging that bond, whether it's physical or emotional. Make them investigate. You are making a mystery. There are mysteries for them to solve. So, make them search for clues. If they're stuck, ask for what they're looking for next. Try to encourage that investigative energy for your campers. Surprise them. And that's just a common that's just a common GM principle. Surprising, coming up with twists, never letting the first possible explanation. Like Occam's razor is your enemy as a storyteller in role-playing games. The obvious solution should have a wrinkle or a nuance to it or something unexpected. So always think about how you can subvert tropes and subvert their expectations. Things here, examples, the werewolf is never terrorizing the camp because it's an evil werewolf, and surprise the girls with jump scares at appropriate times. So you play into that idea of, again, peril and fear are fine. Next, tell them the possible consequences. So sometimes the girls want to do something that is not covered by a move. What do they have to give up, or what hard choice needs to be made in order to accomplish their goal? So for example, you can quickly get away from that pesky cabin counselor, but you will need to leave your research behind. So that's the yes, but sort of principle. Turn their move back on them. So when a girl misses on a move attempt, whatever they were attempting to do happens to them instead. So trying to befriend a creature, if they miss, now they're charmed by that creature. Or were they investigating? If they fail, now an authority figure has the same information that the girls do. So again, that's a yes, but, or a complication sort of thing. Offer an opportunity with a cost. That's another very good principle. Yes, but is how I... Yes, but. Give them an opportunity to do something, but provide a cost for it. Something they have to do, something they will have, a favor they will have to give to someone else, a payment they will have to make of some kind, things like that. Put someone in trouble. This is a game of teenage girls, so no physical harm, as we talked about. However, that does not mean you can't threaten. A creature could kidnap a girl, or someone might get in trouble for sneaking into the kitchen and is at risk of being sent home. Think about the kinds of stakes that seem... This is something that I really want to work on. When you're playing things like Dungeons and Dragons, and you're playing Dungeons and Dragons at high level, what very often ends up happening is kind of what happens with action movies. A lot of superhero movies or action movies all end with a machine or magic thing shooting a bright beam of light into the sky, and that bright beam of light is going to destroy the world. And that's... Go watch some movies. Go watch some Marvel movies. Go watch some DC superhero movies. Too many of them end with a giant pillar of light streaking into the sky, and that's what they have to defeat or stop. In the and so in the same way, in Dungeons and Dragons, a lot of times when you hit certain high levels, your characters are just gonna be the heroes stopping a god, the heroes stopping a lich, the heroes stopping a dragon. And the stakes are always like, the world's gonna explode. And I really want to start getting back into smaller stakes games. Games where you can still experience a lot, but not that everything's life or death. You can have just who's gonna go to the dance, or you know, in this case, the risk of being sent home. What would trouble be for a bunch of teenage girls or preteens, however you want to play it, and those risks, those stakes, day-to-day risks and stakes, lower them. Make those important. Change the rating scale and scoot it down. So something that seems very trivial for an adult might seem like life or death for a teenager. So just kind of adjust what your danger scale is, or what your threat scale is, and live in that space. Let the campers experience things at that level of threat. All right. Next one is make someone doubt them. A Cassandra situation. But counselor, the werewolf is coming out of the ocean, and it's a merwolf. Oh, that's stupid. You're just being a silly girl. So, sometimes people... Okay, I really like this. This is a good statement on perseverance and the kinds of... Alicia, you did this in Basic Witches, too. So I love this. Being a teenage girl is hard, and a lot of people don't think that girls have anything of value to say. Make some authority figures and adults doubt the girls and their stories. The girls might tell someone about enormous humanoid footprints in the woods, only to have it dismissed as a very tall human or an outright hoax. This is a world in which not everyone is as in the know as your girls, by the sounds of it. You are expected to, or not expected, sorry, encouraging you as a storyteller to have the girls have to kind of fight to be heard, or take agency on their own to solve a problem that the adults are too busy dealing with their own adult stuff to pay attention to. And even though the risk or the problem might be, might be worth paying attention to as an adult, the girls, they're responsible for dealing with it. So yeah. And then after every move, ask what they do next. So this is encouraging the girls, the campers, to advance your story, to show agency, to show initiative. Don't assume what they're going to do. Never assume what they will do, according to the book. But let them drive the narrative in response to the moves that you make as a counselor. So, girls act, you react, you ask them what they do next. Encouraging them to play their turn actively every time. Okay, what's the next thing you do? Okay, because you do that, this happens. What's the next thing you do? So pushing them to push the story forward, because their goals, their motivations, their desires are good to focus on to lead them into a story that they want to tell. That's the biggest reason why you give players agency, is because you are helping them tell the story they want to tell. So that's your job as a counselor. Tell the story, push them forward, create complications, make it fun. So the what time? Oh, well, this is like sort of the last big section here, before we go into lore. But so what are you doing? What plots are you giving the campers? Those are your mysteries. So to the basic inciting incident of your story is often going to be a supernatural event that the girls are going to investigate, and these are called mysteries. Some of these might be threatening. They're usually weird. So you're meant to subvert common concepts of monsters and strange occurrences. Creatures and monsters should be humanized and understandable. I just realized another really good touchstone for this is Hilda. If you haven't watched Hilda on Netflix, please do. It's amazing. Very good. It's very gentle fantasy. Everybody's capable of reason. Every monster is understandable and empathetic, if not sympathetic. You can understand why they're doing something. You might not agree with it, but and there is always a way to figure out how to talk out a problem, and I love the idea that these supernatural creatures are all capable of being reasoned with in some level. If you can just figure out what they need and what they want, you can talk your problems out. It's also a very Steven Universe thing. So you can tell, Alicia, why I zoned in on this game. All right, so where are we going? So creatures and monsters should be humanized and understandable, and strange phenomena should have different results than expected. So take a common fantasy trope, take a common supernatural trope, and think of a different way to approach it. Think of a different cause for it. Think of, try to subvert what you're doing, because the idea, partially, would be to have your girls come in with an expectation, and then that expectation gets subverted, and they learn something from it. So, mysteries end when the girls have found a solution to address the root cause of the mysterious havoc. When designing a mystery, keep the ending fluid. Remember, the narrative should be driven by the girls. Do not present one problem with one solution. Instead, present the creature's need or the event's cause and ask the girls, what do you do next? I run into this problem sometimes where I have one solution to an issue and have to kind of do a detour to get them there, and figure out, a lot of times if you're dealing with a mystery that involves someone who has personal needs, think about different ways that person can have that need met. Don't just have one solution. Think less about specific events or decisions, and think more thematically. So let's just conjure one for a second. Creature from the Black Lagoon terrorizing campers on canoes. Turns out that the reason that they're terrorizing campers on canoes is because they're sad about something. Now, the solution to that could be becoming their friend, helping them get back together with their significant other creature from the Black Lagoon. helping them find a hobby that gets their mind off a bad breakup that they had. Think about the fact that there are multifaceted ways that you can take a solution. If a creature is meant to be humanized and understandable, humans have different needs that can be met by many different things. Let's see. When dealing with creatures, it is best practice to allow them to speak or easily communicate. This is a game about the unexpected, after all. Below, you will find a few example mysteries to inspire your game. Basic guidelines. Yes. Take what you want, leave what you don't, and make it your own. That is our catchphrase here. So yes, right after communication is key. So adapt and expand these as it suits your needs. So here are some cool basically think about it as like adventure modules. Examples of what you can do with the game. I won't read through them because I don't want to like spoil stories if you want to play these. But examples, a chupacabra, and that kind of fits actually with my my Creature from the Black Lagoon example. Then we have the Frog Lake Triangle, so missing boats in the middle of the lake. I didn't mean to completely guess the first two adventures you mentioned. The Werewolf's Curse, thinking about how you can, that sort of story. And here are some examples of creatures and phenomena and some inciting incidents, and I love that you can mix and match them. These are excellent. These are very good. You have a mix of cryptids and magic and sort of science fiction stuff. Time and space, timey-wimey Doctor Who kind of stuff. So you have a lot of genres you can start playing with depending on the tone or theme you want to do. You could even play around with like something like Eureka, the old sci-fi show, if you wanted to have like Camp Flying Moose be a, camp for mad scientist teenagers. You can do a lot of stuff with that. And then inciting incidents, these are some mysteries that you would lay in front of the girls to solve that could be caused by some of the creatures or phenomena in the first area. Or come up with your own. Just about coming up with fun, whimsical concepts and fun, whimsical adventures for the girls to go on. There is, if you get this, and if you go to the link, I will make sure I up again. If you go to the link for the author Alicia, you can find the downloads for Camp Flying Moose, which also includes the character sheet that is fillable, which I love. Send it to your players online. And you fill these out. So these are the questions that were originally given to your character. How many years have you been coming to camp? What do you carry with you at all times? Who's your best friend? And what are you an expert at camp? And your special moves. There's also a document that is all the basic moves and the counselor moves so that you have some reference sheets. You don't have to scroll through this. This is a 30-page document. So let me really quick... these end up, if this isn't the power hour today, it's gonna be the power hour and a half. So let me try to get through the last section of this. And I'm sorry, I went very out of order. But now that you have a basis for how to play the game and sort of some of the themes of the game, let's talk a little bit about the world of Camp Flying Moose. So, as we had talked about before, the major themes of this story are about friendship and overcoming things with friendship or overcoming difficulties within friendships. So that should be a core tenet of your game design when you're making an adventure or a story for this system. You can read through the history of Camp Flying Moose, which is pretty easy to retain, I think. But you get a little bit of geography and a little bit of history. It's expressing that Camp Flying Moose has a more progressive foundation of it now in terms of rebranding itself, thinking about the history of summer camps and, colonized culture. It's on the surface, very quintessential summer camp. Activities like archery, swimming, and crafting, and music classes, volunteering in the local town, so that gives you another location that you can play with. You can, so it's got a 1950s camper aesthetic, which is very fun. This sort of like rustic playful, simple aesthetic to it. Talks about Millicent Brown, or Millie, who is the proprietor, the owner of Flying Moose Summer Camp. Has a nice description of of Millie. Millie is tall and broad. She looks like the love child of a queer lumberjack and Rosie the Riveter. I already love her. Millie has dark umber brown skin and tightly coiled short hair. To look at her, you suspect Millie to be in her late 40s. She has always looked the same age for as long as the camp has existed. Her usual camp outfit is plaid shirts and jeans, and she's always sporting a bandana around her neck. She's always often accompanied by a fox who she has whole conversations with, though no one can hear the fox answering. She calls the fox Bijou, but if asked, she says the fox's real name is a secret. The camp is for strong, curious, peculiar girls of all kinds. Millie seems delightful. She's active in the camp activities, and she's usually doing something silly or outrageous. If you've played Psychonauts, that reminds me a little bit of the old man character who's constantly doing stuff in the camp. She actively encourages people to pursue mystery. Several of the camp staff are certain that Millie is a witch, and they probably aren't wrong. That is beautiful. You get a nice description of Millie, while at the same time opening it up for telling stories about Millie. If you want a mystery to involve who or what Millie is, you can do that. You are given just enough information to make her mysterious. She seems functionally immortal and is very encouraging of people to be investigative towards the mysterious or supernatural. So, why does Millie have a vested interest in girls being curious and independent? Why is she immortal? Who knows? That's for you to talk about if you want to talk about that in your story. So you have some geography for Camp Flying Moose, of which I would absolutely love to draw something for that. Have a little illustration of Camp Flying Moose. I want to double check really quick. Was one, but I just want to. No. But you have some really basic geography here that you can play around with and what's around. So, Frog Lake is right on the edge of camp. Oddly enough, it contains no frogs. It is medium-sized lake. However, rumor has it it's so deep it's impossible to find the bottom. Mount Upright is a mountain to the north of camp. Campers often hike as part of their activities. Sometimes at night, strange sounds can be heard coming down from the mountain. Alicia, thank you so much for every single time you're describing something, you're providing a story hook. That's chef kiss. Fairy Forest. Around Camp Flying Moose the forests are either very old or very young. Either way, they are magical. Strange, unpredictable things happen in the woods, and sometimes mixed northern hemisphere-like forest gives way to small pockets of tropical paradise, which never seem to be there when you try to find them again. The Fairy Forest is Millie's favorite part of camp. And Franks Bay. The closest town to Camp Flying Moose is Franks Bay, a small rural town based around mining and forestry. The locals mostly ignore Camp Flying Moose, but the businesses always appreciate the financial boom on the days the campers take field trips into town. Again, another plot hook. So, I think I covered everything. Okay, so that is not so much an overview, but a deep dive into Camp Flying Moose for girls of all kinds. So excited. I very much want to play this, and I want to thank you, Alicia, for one, the raid, and two, for letting me talk about it. I'm just very energized by doing this. So, here's the deal, friends. Thank you so much for joining me to talk about this. Water. I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. And maybe I'm saying this too soon, but you know, whatever. I'm bringing back Discover RPG. This is our first episode after a very long hiatus, and I'm bringing it back with an expressed purpose. This is gonna be potentially a demo for future events like this. What I would like to do, with permission, is I would like to run a few games in Camp Flying Moose. And maybe encourage people who want to run some games to come join me on Nerdsmith's Discord server. Our Discord server is a pretty general topic. We have all sorts of space there. We try to keep it a safe, positive place, but we do have channels for you to explore and talk about more heavy topics. We want people to still feel like they can express themselves and talk about specific issues if you need to. So we have for example, right now we have some current event areas. So we have a COVID channel and a Black Lives Matter channel so that people can talk more in depth and be focused on that. But our general areas are meant to be welcoming and open and fun for everyone who comes in, and we try to maintain a safe community. What I'd like to do is start up with one of the prongs. Discover RPG is now going to have a 3-pronged approach to how we talk about RPGs, specifically indie RPGs. What I would like to do is more episodes like this, where we talk out systems, we learn how to play them, and we brainstorm how to run them, what kind of stories we want to run for them. And that's something I would love to do on a regular basis here on Discover RPG. The other facet, the second facet of it, is I would, at some point, like to organize live stream games with some friends and some new people. I want to have fun, diverse live streams of folks learning and playing indie games to give them a little bit more exposure. The third prong, and this is where y'all come in, third prong is I would like to organize some game days in the Discord server, or a game week in the Discord server. The idea being that for a week or two, we focus on a very specific system, we learn how to play the system, and then we open up Nerdsmith's Discord server as a space for people to organize and play in that system in a bunch of one-shots or mini campaigns or however they want. We'd like to just facilitate people finding other folks that want to play games or want to make campaigns, play or run them in a system that we've decided to focus on and have fun in. So, if you're interested in playing a one-shot of Camp Flying Moose for Girls of All Kinds, obviously since I ran this stream, I'll get the ball rolling and run one or two in the next week or two. We'll try to organize things. But if you're interested, please consider joining us in Discord. I will make sure that there is a Discover RPG place for you to go. Let me double check and make sure we still have one. Have a channel. I might have renamed the channel. I am going to rename the channel, but let me get the invite link is below the stream. There's a clickable link there. Under Nerdsmith, you can join our Discord server, but I will copy the link address right now. This is where you can join us. And what I'd like to do is come up with a couple of parties of 2 to 4 people and play a couple of rounds of this game, a couple of sessions. I think it would be fun. And I really want to encourage other people. If you want to play this game or if you want to run this game, please come hang out. Come hang out with us, and we'll play something. I really want to explore this game. I'm super duper excited about it. It fits so perfectly with the tone I want to start playing in. I think if you followed our show before, you know that I really wanted to create a show called Gentle D&D, which basically was reinventing the wheel, to be honest. I want to run games that have gentle stakes. Maybe not low stakes, just nice, non-combat focused games that still allow you to experience a lot of different emotions and a lot of different adventures and stories, but not necessarily just all life or death or battle and hacking and slashing. As satisfying as that can be in fantasy games or sci-fi games. So that's the game plan. I'm going to be running a couple of one-shots with Camp Flying Moose for Girls of All Kinds. I highly recommend, highly recommend that you join me in supporting indie creators like Alicia. Please go check out her itch account. If you want a copy of this, you have a very good sense of what the game is now. So the idea of buying like a demo copy, unnecessary. It is, I will say, more importantly,
Camp Flying Moose is now part of the itch.io bundle for racial justice and equality. So, if you pay $5 now, you can get a copy of it, plus like 150 other games. Or you could buy it individually to support Alicia directly. Highly recommend it. I really want to get into the habit of when we run these sort of games, or when I do these learning games, learning streams, we sort of flash mob the creator in question and purchase and let them know that we sent you and that sort of thing. So please support indie RPGs. This took a lot of work and is real fun and would be delightful to play, which is why I want to. So yeah, that's what I got. I'm losing my voice, so I'm gonna eat a lozenge, not on mic. No, that tells me that I should wrap up. Really quick then. Let's Oh, very cool. So yes, please consider paying directly from the game site if you either aren't interested in having 150 games, or if you want to directly support Alicia. 50% of her proceeds this month are also going to be a donation, so you can do some good while also directly supporting her work. I'm gonna plug real quick that one of the reasons that I was very excited when I took a look at the page was Alicia also wrote 2 other games that I'm super excited about playing at some point. One has a very similar tone to this. Yes, that too. Thank you. I need like a list of how you can support people. Buy the bundle, get a bunch of games, and then donate to Alicia's fund, like Ko-fi or anything, whatever, Patreon, whatever resources. But so there's a couple of games that she has also made. I have not gotten a chance to look at Allura. I have a fondness for anything called Allura, though. Those of you who know, I sang as Allura in the Hamilton Critical Role mashup that was made a couple years ago. I'm Allura and Rice Shawn, and I helped write it, and so the name has a special place in my heart. But she wrote Honk, which is, if you played Untitled Goose Game, or if you were vaguely aware of Untitled Goose Game, Honk is a one-page about redeeming the reputation of your goose after they cause havoc, which I adore. And then Basic Witches is another game on my very, very short list to run soon, which is about teen femmes running or working or hanging out at a witchy coffee shop and dealing with teen stuff. So again, feels very on vibe with Camp Flying Moose in terms of thematic elements, and I am very excited to play that game. I am already making a campaign plan for that. So this might also be another game that we do in the Discover RPG community. I am actually making an attempt to make a community, so I very, very much hope you join me as we, I don't know, collect folks and friends and learn new games together and play new games together. I am very energized and excited about what this channel brand show, I guess. We're on the Nerdsmith channel. But as a show, it'd be very, very fun. Goodbye, Pygmy. I'm signing off too, so this will be very good timing. Alright, everybody. Last but not least, said I'm a member of the Nerdsmith family. I'm a member of Nerdsmith, a proud co-owner and director of Nerdsmith. We are supporting, we believe Black Lives Matter. We are supporting the Bail Project right now with a fundraiser. We are helping to, your weird little game is delightful, Alicia. I am more than happy to support it. If you would like to support our fundraiser, you can find the link below or check us out on Tiltify, and help put a little good into the world. And if you like me, come hang out on Friday. I MC karaoke here on Friday night. with a bunch of my Nerdsmith friends. And yeah, so please, 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 please do a couple things for me. Check out Camp Flying Moose. Join our Discord server if you want to come play. Ping me if you need me, like at me. Let me know you're there for that. Have a very safe, very productive, or very restful rest of Wednesday. Have a wonderful rest of your week. I will see you next week, same time, noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, here on our Twitch channel. We are Nerdsmith. And as I always request of friends old and new, please do me a favor. Good tweet. Guys, have a wonderful day. See you next time, or I'll see you around the server. Bye.